So reports are confirming that Vice President Kamala Harris has chosen the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate in the 2024 presidential election. Walz is currently the governor of Minnesota and serving in his second term. Prior to this, he served some time as a congressman in the state, and he also has more of a, I would say, humbling beginning, and also being a high school football coach and more of a traditional Midwestern kind of American background. And I also read reports that Walz had reportedly been very impressive in his vetting interviews with Harris and the Harris team, and that impression may have led to a late kind of surge for him in becoming the vice presidential pick. And there's really not too much to say objectively about this pick, other than I think the thought process here is that Walz will be a pick that will definitely shore up some Democratic support and maybe has some hopes of trying to get some Midwestern votes. I mean, he's governor of a Midwestern state, and similar to how Ohio Senator J.D. Vance was chosen as Trump's running mate, both of them are from the Midwest. I think both campaigns showing that they're making an effort to win over Midwestern voters. And the only thing about that is, this is getting mainly to my opinion part of the video, but I frankly think this is a missed opportunity by Harris and the Harris campaign. I think Harris choosing Walz is kind of a big missed opportunity in the fact that, look, maybe Shapiro was the right choice to be VP, the governor of Pennsylvania. Maybe he was the right choice, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he might have hurt Harris with more progressive Democratic voters. I think Shapiro is someone that would have offered a very, very great chance to win over a lot of independent voters in a very important swing state. And Walz, he's from Minnesota. Minnesota's not really a swing state. Like, at absolute best, it's a likely Democratic state right now. Pennsylvania is the most important swing state in the election, and I think if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, I think he's winning the election. And I think by choosing Walz, it's something that's actually not too dissimilar from Trump choosing Vance, in that by Trump choosing Vance, he didn't go for a more moderate pick. He more of picked someone to kind of continue on his own version of his view of the Republican Party. And I think Harris did the same with Walz. Walz, I think, is from the progressive part of the Democratic Party. The media and the Democrats, I'm sure, will say he's a moderate, but by no means, none of his policies as governor have shown anything that Walz is a moderate. So Walz is going to be very similar to Harris and her policies, where she could have picked Shapiro, who I think would have been the best Democratic candidate for VP, if not him or Beshear or Kelly, to try and win over independent voters and being strategic in trying to win the election. I'm not sure if this comparison is 100% accurate or not, but when I read this, the first name that popped in my head, honestly, was Tim Kaine for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I think Walz is a better pick among progressives, and he's probably a little bit more well-known than Kaine. But my first thought was, why? From the beginning, I don't see the advantage of picking Walz. Apparently, he's more of an energetic speaker, and he may be able to drive more people to get up and vote in terms of enthusiasm, but it doesn't strategically, to me, make a lot of sense. He's not even the best Midwestern candidate for vice president that Harris had, but it seems here the strategy by the Harris campaign is going for someone with enthusiasm that doesn't upset the farther left of the Democratic Party, while still counting on independents to turn out and vote on Election Day for Harris over Trump. And to be honest, I think that's in jeopardy. I think we're seeing in the polls a rise of Harris's support. I'm not sure, I'm a little bit skeptical, I won't lie, of how long that surge for Harris will last, but at very least, the surge in the polls did happen, and Harris has positioned herself in a very strong way to at least make this race a lot closer than it was between Trump versus Biden. I'm not sure this vice presidential pick moves the needle in any one direction for Harris. I don't see how choosing a progressive governor of Minnesota is going to get new votes that Harris would not have already gotten in Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin. I personally just don't see it. And look, to be completely honest, I've been from the beginning saying I thought Shapiro was Harris's best VP pick. And I think it might have honestly came very close to guaranteeing the state of Pennsylvania for Harris. And I really question if Walz can do this. If Walz, being the governor of Minnesota, gets any of these new voters. Similar that Vance is from Ohio, I'm not sure how many voters he actually brings over to Trump that Trump would not already get. I think Walz kind of does the same thing. And this comes into a bigger issue with VP that I think Trump has been saying a lot recently, which is how important actually is the VP pick in driving out votes. And I think I've been guilty of this as well. I think a lot of people, kind of overestimate how important the VP actually is. I really don't think there are that many people who wouldn't vote for Trump or Harris, but will now go out and vote for them because they love their VP picks. I don't think it really has much of an effect. The only effect it might have, though, is I think in the VP's home state itself. For instance, I think Tim Kaine did help Hillary Clinton a little bit in boosting her margins in Virginia in 2016. I'm sure Mike Pence helped Trump in Indiana, but these are two states I think both candidates are going to win anyway. And Vance, I think it remains to be seen. I think Trump was probably going to do very well in Ohio anyway. And Walz, I think this may give Harris a few percentage points boost in Minnesota, but Minnesota was going to go for Harris anyway as well. And I struggle to see the logic here of picking Walz when I don't think he was the best choice to get more independent voters. The Harris campaign is definitely choosing to prioritize shoring up their own Democratic base of support as opposed to going after new, modern, undecided voters. It now becomes a question for many voters who are moderate and independent and aren't sure if they're going to vote for Trump or Harris. This VP pick, in my view, does not help make their decision any easier, because Trump's VP pick and Trump are on the same, pretty much in lockstep with everything they agree on. Walz and Harris are in lockstep in everything they agree on. There really is no moderate candidate to kind of get support from both sides, from the Democrats and Republicans, where people feel confident and comfortable voting for them. I have no doubt, as I mentioned earlier, that the media and the Democrats will try and make the argument that Walz is that Midwestern unifier. But when you look at the policies he supported in Minnesota, for instance, as I believe it's driver's license for everyone, including illegal immigrants, I don't really see how Republicans are going to run with that message and the Democrats are going to be able to say he's a moderate. I just think it kind of flies flat in his face, to be honest. And at the end of the day, that's what my main disagreement with this pick is. Obviously, I don't know much about Walz too much, aside from the fact that he's the governor of Minnesota and the situation that happened in 2020 surrounded Minneapolis and St. Paul with the BLM riots. I think there's certainly some baggage here for Republicans to go after Walz on and really tie him out to be a very far-left Democratic candidate and probably the most far-left Democratic ticket we've ever had in the history of America. Now, we're living in very polarized times, though, so with that being said, how much of an effect does that actually have? Would the Trump campaign calling Harris and Walz the most far-left ticket in American history really change anything? Because they called Biden and Harris in 2020 the most far-left ticket in Democratic history, and they won. So I'm not sure if that'll have too much of an impact, but at very least, I think this helps Harris with Democratic voters. I don't think this helps her with independent voters. And I don't think it helps her in a state that she needed help winning. Whereas, again, I think Shapiro, at very least, is the governor of the most important swing state in the country. Maybe it may have hurt Harris in some states like Minnesota or Michigan, where there is a higher population of Muslim voters, and that may have maybe made some of them stay home and not vote for Harris. But I think the state of Pennsylvania was so important for Harris's pathway to winning. I made it clear from the beginning she needs to win all three of the Rust Belt states. Walz might be able to help with neighboring Wisconsin, maybe Michigan, but I don't see how not choosing the governor of Pennsylvania and the most important swing state is a smart move. That's how I see it. And, I've already gone over this a few times, but Walz, I think he's a progressive Democrat. I think a lot of progressive Democrats will like this choice. And I think if there are any Democrats concerned that Harris and Biden weren't progressive enough, Walz will help shore up a lot of those voters. Moderates, independents really don't have much comfort, I think, in a pick like this, because this isn't someone that's very high name recognition for the most part. This isn't someone independents can really gravitate to. maybe a few in the Rust Belt, but I'm not sure there'll be enough to really make a significant margin in the Rust Belt, where, again, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota all have Democratic governors right now. And if I had to rank all four governors, of those states for who could be Harris's VP, there's a good case to be made that Walz would have been my last choice. And in terms of actually getting out voters to try and win the election, he may have been the last choice that I would have personally chosen. And I really think this could be a pick that we look at that might potentially cost Harris the election. Not because it's a bad pick per se and that Walz will have any scandals, because I really don't think he will. I think he's a very safe pick for Harris and very safe in terms of getting Democratic progressive voters out to vote for her. I don't think this is a good pick in the fact that it won't bring out new voters that would not already vote for Harris as is. All I think this does is set up an election where there'll be like 47% of the country voting for Trump pretty much no matter what, and now 47% of the country voting for Harris no matter what. And that last percentage, that last 4% that'll be undecided, or the last 6%, that'll be undecided, that's who will decide this election. And I don't think either VP choice is going to help the main top-of-ticket candidates with leaning one way or another. I think it's going to come down to the wire, and we're not going to know until Election Day how independents and moderates are going to break, because I don't think the VP choices help to winning those voters over. But with that said, the one thing we know for sure now is we have some clarity in this race. It will now be Donald Trump as the Republican nominee versus Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee, and J.D. Vance will serve as Donald Trump's running mate and potential vice president, and Tim Walz will serve as Kamala Harris's running mate and potential vice president. And look, a lot of this video, I will say, I was going after Walz pretty hard because I don't think he was the best choice Harris could have chosen in terms of winning votes. Maybe he brings more appeal to the ticket than just winning votes. Maybe he brings energy, enthusiasm, fundraising. But at least when it comes to winning over independent votes, I don't think this really helps Harris all that much. And at least in my mindset, when it comes to winning a general election, I think winning over the voters in the middle who are not assigned to either party, who are either registered as unenrolled or maybe for a certain party but tend to vote for the candidate they like better. I just personally think this was a missed opportunity for Harris to go after a candidate to get more independent voters, and I'm not sure how much this pick actually really helps her. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment below telling me your thoughts on this pick and how you think it will impact the 2024 election. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.